Hi, I'm Andy Webb from BeCleverWithYourCash.com. I'm joined by Rob Wade from robwade.co.uk. You probably watched our video where we looked at the price of wine. Well, that conversation went in all sorts of other areas, and there's lots of other kind of bits and pieces about money and wine and how you get the best value that didn't make that cut. So here are some of those other bits and pieces. There's so much in the supermarket. I was looking at the shelves. I was just looking just for Pinot Noirs, and there were about 20 Pinot Noirs in Sainsbury's. Yeah. I know it's kind of quite an on-trend red wine right now. Recently, and if you don't know your wine, it's just how you choose. And I generally go with what's on offer. If something's on offer, I'll pick one of the ones that's on offer.
Yeah, and that's how supermarkets shift their stock.
Yeah.
And supermarkets have massively muddied the waters, deliberately, I have to say. They can use their buying power for good, and they do. They do give you good wine at a decent price, but they've also at the same time really muddied the water, and they've not done the wine buyer any favours, because what they've done by having these permanent round of discounting wines marked up just to be marked down is they've actually detached that kind of link between price and quality.
Yeah.
Because someone who's unlucky enough to spend £13 on a bottle of wine, they're going to splash out and spend £13 on a bottle of wine, only to find out that next week it's on sale offer for £6.50, and it was always really a £6.50 wine. Well, they've said, well, I bought this for £13 wine, and it was no different to what I normally buy, so I'm never going to buy a £13 bottle of wine again. And that is the upshot of this kind of constant discounting. And I think sometimes I feel like I go to a supermarket and there are more wines on offer than there are at so-called full price.
There's a really good app called My Supermarket, which you might already know about, but it gives you the price history for everything that everything a supermarket stocks. So you can go in there and you can look, and it'll give you like the last 3 months, 12 months of price history.
Okay, that's
so you can see, and I use this for wine, and I'll have a look at something and I'll be able to tell how often it's actually been on offer. And there's one wine I got the other day, it was reduced to clear actually, so it was like an end of line thing, and it was £11 from 19. And again, I wouldn't normally spend that kind of money on the wine. But I had a look, and the cheapest it had ever been it was Sainsbury's again, was 15 quid. So I thought, it's worth a punt.
The upshot is that £13 will buy you an awful lot in some regions.
Yeah.
Like, I love southern Italian wines. I like wines from Puglia and Basilicata.
Yeah.
And £13 gets you a lot there. It gets you a lot in southern France, in Languedoc-Roussillon, in the Côte d'Arône regions. It gets you a lot there. It doesn't get you much in Burgundy, because Burgundy is very expensive. It gets you nothing in Champagne, for example.
Yeah.
It gets you very little in California, because these are all really expensive wine regions.
Yeah.
But it will get you a lot from Chile. It will get you a lot from Mendoza, which makes amazing wines, but it makes so much wine that some of them are, much cheaper.
Yeah.
Bordeaux. Because Bordeaux makes wines that sell at £1,000 a bottle, but it also makes wines that sell at £5 a bottle.
£1,000? That's just insane. How can a wine be worth £1,000? That's showing off. Surely someone
it's exactly what
surely, you could spend, I reckon, 15 quid on a bottle of wine. That same person, if they really, really thought about it, they'd spend 15 quid and they'd probably still enjoy the wine.
Of course.
But they're spending £1,000 just because they can, and that's...
Well, absolutely. I mean, a watch can't be worth £5,000 objectively in terms of like looking good and being able to tell the time. You can get a watch that will do that for 1,000 quid, for 500 quid, for who knows?
Yes.
I wear a £20 Casio most of the time.
Classic.
It's a classic, yeah. So it's like anything. It's like when you buy a £5,000 watch, you're not buying something that tells the time. You're buying a statement. And it's the same for a £1,000 wine. My personal opinion, I've tried wines at £2,000 a bottle. That's probably the top. And I've tried wines at every price range between. And I would say, for me, for my palate level, which is good, but it's not the best by far.
Alright, so fair enough.
It's definitely not the best. There's so many better palettes out there. For me, at my level, I would say, after about £45, that's when it starts to kind of tail.
And then this is like supermarket wine cellars. Obviously, when you get to a restaurant, we can talk about restaurants another time.
Yeah, in a restaurant generally you can divide the price of the wine by 3 or 4. So yeah, £45 wine in a restaurant's really £12–15. But yeah, no, retail, I generally think it sort of tops out about 45. I think the sweet spot for real quality is about 20.
Okay.
I would always go to a specialist wine shop if I was going to spend £20.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see it in supermarkets that often.
No.
I mean, I was in Sainsbury's now, okay, I was only looking at the reds, only looking at the Pinot Noirs, but there wasn't really anything, I didn't notice much that was topping 20 quid.
No, because wine's an interest, and people who have an interest beyond like a sloshing a glass down with a meal, which is how most wine is drunk. But if you want to spend that sort of money, you want a bit more, you know, exclusivity, and I don't mean that. I don't mean that in a sort of pompous way, but what I mean, I suppose, is the kind of wine that justifies a £20 price tag. They generally don't make enough to supply a supermarket.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want a kind of small supplier, and they say, yeah, we get this, but they only make 500 cases a year. You know, it's that kind of thing. Supermarkets obviously have to work on a scale.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, for a lot of people, there's no point spending that much money on a bottle of wine, because if you just want it to be smooth, approachable, drink it back, watching a film, having a pizza, why spend more? I don't, most of the time. Most of the time I drink wine like that, and yeah, £6–7 can be fine. I'm
Andy Reb at BeCleverYourCash.com. Rob's website is robwade.co.uk, where there's lots of fantastic recipes that you can look at as well. And hopefully you've kind of learned a little bit from our kind of wine experiment.
Drinking.
Science, proper science. This is pure science.
Yeah.
There's proper tests and everything.
Yeah, we're like literally not even going to drink these now.
No, that's it. And in the articles, both on my site and on Rob's, you'll get a little bit more information about how to get the best value from your wine. Thanks so much.
Cheers.